Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Quebec NDP MP Tyrone Benskin was a celebrated and prolific actor before becoming a member of Parliament. He came to Canada at the age of 9 from the United Kingdom with his parents and his 2 siblings, but he knew from the age of 7 that acting was going to be his career of choice, and it was, until he was approached to run for the federal nomination for the riding of Jean Lebert. Tyrone Benskin joins me now to talk all about life beyond politics. Tyrone Benskin, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really great to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me here.
You know, when I was doing my research on you and I was getting to really see all of the fascinating things that you've done in a very successful acting career primarily, I was thinking to myself, what on earth was this man thinking to run for office at this stage in his life? What were you thinking?
Well, I always kind of, I don't believe in luck. I believe, what we call luck is a matter of preparedness meets opportunity. So whenever opportunities come my way, whether I understand why they're there or not, I tend to really listen to them. Because if they're coming at that time, they must be coming for a reason. And that sounds very airy-fairy, artsy-fartsy.
No,
but I think it's
probably born of experience.
Yeah. And the experience, the opportunity came, and it came to me very strongly. It wasn't sort of like hey, you should think of running for politics. It was, it was a combination of people, including Jack Layton, coming to me and saying,
I'm saying what, though? We're going to support you. We'll do everything we can. We'll make this, as easy as
possible.
Yeah.
Well, it really came about what seems like, by accident. I had gone to support a gentleman who is a teacher, and he would invite me to his school to speak to his students. So, and he won the nomination for the NDP for town of Mount Royal. So I went to go, hey, Jeff, yeah. And both Jack and Thomas were there, and I had met them previously in my incarnation as ACTRA council member and national vice president. Right. So I spoke to Tom, I spoke to Jack briefly, and
by Tom you mean
Tom McCare, yeah. And listening to Jack on that particular case, and I'd heard him speak other times, but on this particular occasion, it just there's something that resonated, and I became that moment I became an NDP member. Wow. And I spoke to Thomas about who was running in my riding with the intention of volunteering and helping that person.
Oh, and then those were the fateful words.
And Thomas pointed me in the direction of Anne-Marie Aubert, who called me the next day and said, "When can we have lunch?" And I said, "Well, about tomorrow." And thinking, hey, she's going to,
put me to work.
Yeah.
I'll be a nice volunteer.
Well, she set me on the track of going to work. She sort of sat down at lunch and said, so, how would you feel about running?
What did you do? Well, I mean, what was your reaction?
My reaction was quite stunned, right? Really, because for me, I'm an actor, and that's where I took things from. So, I mean, what am I going to have to offer? So there was a lot of consultation with family and siblings and trusted friends about whether or not this made sense, and the unequivocal answer to that was duh.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't have people saying to you, that is lunacy?
No, not a one.
Why? Why do you think? I mean, I don't mean that you wouldn't, that they wouldn't think you'd be excellent, but they're looking at someone who has a celebrated career in a field, and they're very good at it. I mean, you're very good at it. You've got people who respect the work that you do. So why make a change? I can't believe there weren't people who said that, and I think that's great.
Yeah, not a one. So I don't know. Maybe they didn't think my work was as good as you think it is, and we're suddenly telling me.
Thank God, he's finally realized it.
But what was happening was they were seeing things that I wasn't seeing. Right? It was forced for the trees type thing.
Yeah.
And I realized what they were talking about when I got the nomination and was doing my acceptance speech to my investiture, and I had to write something. And, you know, and I'm saying to myself, these people in this riding don't know me from Adam, right? So I need to kind of give a little bit of that.
Okay.
And in putting that together, I began to see, working backwards, the connections. So, you know, I've always been, you know, my parents have always taught me that you have two choices. Whenever there's problems, you know, you can sit and complain about it, or you can do something about it. And I've always been, you can do something about it. So when I was in high school, I was on the Students' Council. You know, in CEGEP, I was, a part of, not activism, but involved in things that, I ended up being a spokesperson,
And with ACTRA?
And then when I became an actor, and I, began to feel that there were issues that we needed to, I became an ACTRA council member, first on branch council, and then eventually getting to national council and becoming national vice president.
Right.
And part of that, that 10-year span of being on the national council, was coming to Ottawa and lobbying for Canadian content, lobbying to get what was then called the CTF, the $25 million that was cut from the CTF, lobbying to get that back successfully, and being part of the policy direction for the organization from that point on. So what my friends and family were seeing was this was taking up a lot of my time. I was acting, but I was still doing a lot of that stuff. My family in particular, were already making those links backwards. So for them, it was really a logical next step.
They just wanted you to get paid for it. They're thinking, look, this guy has got to make this a profession.
Yeah, so that was good. I mean, and it was partly the lack of doubt in their mind that made it clear. There was no sort of, well, I mean, it's going to be, and you're going to, there was sort of, this is something you should do.
So help me understand, now that you are in this position as a member of Parliament, are you able to continue acting?
I can, and I have. I've mostly voice work and so forth.
Right.
And there's the potential of a film, possibly too, in the summer when we're break. Because I mean,
That's
ultimately,
great.
As an actor, you don't work from, even though a film may shoot over 30 days, you don't work all those 30 days. Out of those 30 days, you may work 3 or 4. For example, on Immortals, I think I worked something like 6 days. For what ended up on screen was a grand total. I haven't seen it yet, but a grand total of like 3 minutes maybe. Right. So you can do, you can do it and still get the work that you need to get done. So,
yeah.
And, time. It's all about timing.
So to take a step back then, you've won your nomination. You've had the unwavering support of everyone you know. Did you think you could win the actual election?
Well, I know that, I mean, this is almost a cliche, but I don't do anything unless I do it to win. I may not always, but my intent is to win. So what I did is when I spoke to, the various people involved, including Jack, I said, look, I will commit to 2 cycles. I called it cycles, election cycles. If I do well in this first one, the numbers go, there's significant growth in the numbers, I will stick around for the next one. Right, and build on that over the period of time that we have. If I don't, then I will step back, because obviously I'm the wrong person, and you can find somebody else.
Boy, you really do think like a politician.
No, I don't know. I just don't like wasting time.
And I mean that in a good way.
I don't like wasting time.
Yeah, sure.
There's no point in my sort. And for me, it wasn't a vanity thing. So it wasn't about how I did. It was really about whether or not I was going to be any use to anybody. In doing that, I told them, but I am doing this to win. So if you are doing this with the intent from a party perspective of having a better showing, growing, the membership, growing, and all that, then I don't want any part of that. If you are going to work as hard as I'm willing to work to come out on top of this, that I'm there. Whether we do or not is neither here nor there. The work needs to be there. And I got full support from the party and, and Thomas and the end result.
What was it like on election night for you? Not just watching your own results come in, but watching the national results come in.
It was pretty surreal, I'll tell you. It was pretty surreal. Like, when you realize, and I'm so incredibly privileged. All of us, 308 of us, are incredibly privileged to be a part of history. And when that little moment happens, when you realize this is a historic moment and I'm part of it, it really, you tremble, and that's kind of what I did. We were all at the Rialto Theatre in Montreal, and I thought the race was going to be a whole lot closer, because the history of that riding is, very close races. So I kind of hung out at home for the first probably hour or so. I didn't watch anything, and then I left to go to to the Rialto. And when I got there, the numbers were already obviously coming in for about an hour. And when I got there, I think the first numbers I saw were, I was at 800, 900 change, and my the incumbent was at 400 and change. But only a few polls had closed. So I figured, okay, well, they started counting this area first, so I'll wait. But that 2-to-1 average kept on happening right through to the end. So
now, you say that you go in something to win, but at that stage, were you starting to say to yourself, wow, I have gotten myself into this, and now I have to, there's elation, but also the reality check of like, yeah, this is going to be my new job.
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of that in terms of, wow, that's pretty well what I kept saying for a good 48 hours after that was, people say, how do you feel? I just got to go, wow. But I wasn't afraid in any way, shape, or form. I was energized. I was I guess for a moment there was sort of like, can I do this? But then I went back to the people that I know and trust, and if they feel that I can, then it's my job to catch up to where they are, not to allow myself to be held back by my own fears.
Sure.
So there was a lot of wow.
That big all-purpose word.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So let's step back a bit and tell me about your family. I mean, you didn't grow up here initially, is that right? You were in the UK?
I was born in England, along with my brother and my sister.
Right.
My parents are from Barbados, and they came over when they were not youngsters. They were. My mom, I think, my mom went over to England from Barbados to go to nursing school, and my father went to find his fortune. Yeah. They met and married and had us 3, and each of us were about 4.5, 5 years apart. Okay. So there's about a 10-year difference between my baby brother and I, who's now 40. So. And so we moved to Canada, and
why did you move to Canada?
Well, because we were too young to have a choice. But
okay. Why did your parents move to Canada?
My parents moved to Canada, I think, because they began to see the growing problems in the UK, and within a couple of years, the pound had gone from $4 Canadian to where it's pretty well hovered till this day. Unemployment and and all of those those things. Luckily, they missed the Thatcher years, and so they came to Montreal, and Montreal was.
Did they have family there? Is that why they chose Montreal, or did they?
No, I had no family. My grandmother moved over the year after, and she was moving to Winnipeg. We thought Winnipeg was like a town next to Montreal, so the kids were kind of looking for Winnipeg, and that's where she lived until she passed 2 years ago. But my aunt and uncle, my mom's brother and sister, are still in Winnipeg with their kids and wives and husbands and whatnot. And so,
what do you remember most about that time coming here from England?
I remember kind of being really scared when I was a kid in England, because, this is 1967, 1968, so the civil rights movement in the States was going on, and, the hoses and the dogs and things, and I was sort of going, I really, and even at like 6, 7 years old when all this was being planned, I just did not want to come to North America.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And so I kept being told that no, that's the U.S. That's not Canada. That's not where we're going. So, you know, when we came here, we came over by ship. My father flew over earlier, May of '68, to find a job and you know, an apartment and everything else. And I remember my dad's Ford Galaxy, I think, or no, he had the Fairlane. Ford Fairlane at the time, and
which was just a boat, a giant
and that was
boat.
That was a mid-range car. You know, that wasn't like the Electra 225 and things of this nature, which, you know, would fit in his room from hand to hand. But no, he came over earlier, and I think my mom refused to fly, so we came over by ocean liner, the Empress of Canada, and docked at Montreal port. The year after Expo '67, I just remember looking out and, you know, going, I want a house just like that, pointing to the
big
geodesic dome and and seeing, you know, the really oddly shaped houses, apartments of
the habitat
right across, right? So it was.
You thought that was probably pretty cool.
It was a cool factor happening there.
And then you saw your real house.
Then it was our cousin who picked us up, and she had an Electra 225, I think, and with the electric windows, and I'd never seen that. You know, well, cars that big either, you know, because in England, I mean, the roads are really small. You don't get cars that big, that big. So this massive car with these electric windows that go up and down, big round houses. It was just like
in space.
It was the coolest
place
thing
is awesome.
World, you know, but and then, you know, as a kid growing up through the October crisis, and you know, and being escorted to school by soldiers, and seeing because I lived in NDG. We lived in NDG for 3 years.
Notre-Dame de Grâce. Yeah.
So until, you know, my parents raised the money for a down payment on the house, and the house that my parents still live in, and we all grew up in, and my parents now raise foster children in.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Did they take in foster kids when you were a child as well?
I remember, I had moved out by the time, like I said, there's 10 years difference, so they started taking him in, I think, when my brother and my sister were still, well, my sister was just about ready to leave as well, so it was just my brother, I think, who kind of experienced, you know, the presence of foster kids. But they've been a part of our lives for, you know, eons now. It's, you know, in and around 40, 50 kids have gone through.
Isn't that amazing?
Our house. We've got 5 now, you know.
Wow. And what motivated your parents to do that?
Quite honestly, my parents, you know, are you know, and this is what I've observed. This is not what they'll say, but what I've observed. My parents are the kind of people that believe that if you have a gift, if you have the ability, then it's something that you don't necessarily keep for yourself. You know, you share it as much as possible. And my parents have a gift for raising children, you know, and really taking kids who are just on the cusp of kind of going the wrong way and showing them that there's an opportunity. They still have the choice, but showing them that they have an opportunity to make a life for themselves that's helpful and contributes to both themselves and the world around them. So,
you know, what's fascinating to me about fostering is just that we can all choose to make a difference in the lives of other people. We can volunteer for an organization, or we can donate money, or whatever the case may be. But when you foster a child, you're taking another human being into your own home and bringing them into your family, and trying and giving over that time, private time, personal time. You're giving over that time to help someone else. I think it's a remarkable thing to do. And I just, I think that also speaks about what kind of a family you were probably raised in as well.
Yeah, well, you know, to this day, you know, I went to see my parents this past weekend, and 4 of the kids were there. And there's one who's just, I think he's aged out, but he's still there, and he's going to school. He's going to IT school, and he's working, and you know, he's putting money aside. And the arrangement is you know, you finish school, you do what you need to do, you take that money, you put it so he's not paying rent or anything else or food.
Yeah.
So when he finishes school, you know, he can go out into the world with a little, you know, bit of money, you know, to his advantage, and you know, have the ability to, you know, to get a job and so forth, and also have the safety of the environment of having a home while he's doing that.
Right.
So there's no distraction from his school or anything else. And you know, when we meet them for the first time, you know, sometimes they're there for a couple of weeks before I actually meet them, even though they exist.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple of times I've gone home and sort of somebody comes in the room and sort of go, "Oh, hi, I'm your foster brother," right? And and that's how we always approach
Is that what you
things.
do?
Yeah.
Good for you.
There's never the sense of you don't belong here.
Yeah.
Or, you have X amount of time to prove that you belong here. It's an immediate thing. And on the younger ones especially, when you see that, that you kind of get that little glint when you go and I'm your foster brother. It's just like a little glint of I belong kind of thing.
Wow.
And inevitably they they kind of find out also that that I have a bit of a
that you're
career,
cool,
and so forth.
You have a cool job.
Yeah. So that's even better.
Yeah.
It's like,
or you had a cool job, maybe.
Yeah. Well,
They still think this is cool.
No, they think this is very cool.
Oh, awesome.
They think this is very cool.
So let's also talk about the acting, because did you know immediately at a certain stage in your life that this is what you wanted to do? That you were 7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happened?
Nothing. It was it was a very natural thing. My parents tell me, or my grandmother told me a story about. There's this one picture that I cannot find for the life of me, but it's me as a little guy in what I remember were powder blue shorts, like dress shorts.
Yes.
With the matching suspenders and a bow tie and a white shirt and my shiny curly hair and my shiny black shoes, and standing next to the TV, in like a portrait thing in England. And underneath it is this kind of glass tray-looking thing that's on a stand. And my grandmother told me that what it actually was back in the day when televisions were first invented, you had you had the tube, and then you had like this magnifying glass in front of it. That until they incorporated the two, and you got the picture tube, that type of thing. But it was once upon a time it was a separate thing. I have no idea why it was there, but apparently I used to go behind the television and pretend, like behind that glass thing, pretend I was on television. So I don't know what, because none of my family, are artists that I know of, and maybe somebody back in my ancestry, but nobody in the current family were. My father has a wonderful voice.
Does he? Does he use it?
No, when he's vacuuming, yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, he's got a voice like Nat King Cole. And one of my greatest pleasures when I went away to school, and I would come home for the weekends and things like that. One of the things that really marked home, because Sundays was sort of like the clean day. Saturdays was grocery shopping and whatnot, and our chore day. So I had to polish the furniture.
Those were your chores?
Yes, before I could watch cartoons,
okay.
I had to polish the furniture and stuff.
And Sundays, did you have a quality check?
No, because I know I was pretty anal about and I still am, right? So, I mean, digressing, but to the point, when that tradition passed on to my sister, my sister, just had no time for that. So when she would polish the furniture, she would spray the furniture and then, not moving a thing. Right, so she just kind of polished around everything.
So fit too.
So my parents would come home from shopping and they'd look and they sort of go, Beverly, did you polish the furniture? Yes. And then my mom would just go, Tyrone, come and do this, right? And my sister would just kind of look at me and grin, because I'd have to come and do that.
Oh, that's not fair.
No, my sister's pretty cool. And, but there was always, I've lost track of what I was saying.
Oh, well, frankly, I have too at this point, because I've realized that you're good at cleaning the house. And I think that could take us down a whole other path.
I'm pretty anal about things of this nature. We all had our things to do, and I can't remember what we were talking about originally.
Well, I think we were talking about I don't know either, so let's skip to something else, because I've totally lost my train of thought too.
As soon as I remember again, I'll jump
Okay, we'll jump back into it. Okay, but let's follow up on this cleaning house thing, because truthfully, you're in this new position now to really jump forward, where you're an MP, and it's a kind of a peripatetic lifestyle. I mean, you're back and forth to the riding in Ottawa. You have a shorter commute than a lot of people, which is good, but you must keep a place here, do you? And do you use a hotel, or is it an actual apartment? No,
it's an actual apartment, and and there's part of me that's sort of going, maybe I should have stuck with the hotel thing, because at least I'd have clean
sheets every night,
clean sheets and stuff like that, and I wouldn't have to do laundry. Well, I mean, I don't mind.
Even though you like doing that, though.
No, I find it very zen. Cooking and cleaning and stuff like that. I find very zen, but so it frustrates me that I can't do I can't do, you know, regular like laundry or house cleaning and so forth, and I actually have to think about hiring somebody to do that because it's driving me crazy.
Because you just don't have time, right?
No, and it's so sporadic. You know, you try to sort of find a rhythm, you know, but the rhythm is basically sporadicness, sporadic rhythm. So.
Sporadic every fourth week.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. You know what we were talking about? We were talking about how you got into acting.
Ah, yes.
And you were saying
the little thing in
the bottom of the TV.
Yeah. So, so I decided then that I was going to be, you know, at 7. That's the first sort of conscious recollection that I have of saying that's what I want to do. And one of the things that kind of spurred that on was watching films from Sidney Poitier films. You know, and I remember watching, I think it was To Serve With Love. And I remember going, that's, you know, it was a confirmation as opposed to a revelation. But I said, that's what I want to do, and that's how I want to do it. Because the roles that Sidney Poitier embodied were really human, really, you know, and I'd seen so many films with, you know, with the slaves and the grinning tap dancers and all those things, which just kind of made me cringe. And to this day, they still make me cringe. Although I understand the dynamics, it still makes me cringe. And that kind of, when I decided, you know, so I went to CEGEP and studied prof theater and creative arts, and I went to Concordia University and continued my studies.
So you really, this was going to be your career?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like the only way my parents would support it, and it was a tacit support because they weren't too, I know they weren't totally thrilled with it, but they never sort of say, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to become a doctor, and you can do that to fall back on. Although my mom would leave like little pamphlets, you know, how to be a paramedic in 1 year kind of thing on my bed, but never said a thing. But it was really important for me to do it. You know, if I was going to do it, you know, I was going to do it right, and I was going to do, you know, all the things that were necessary. And I think that helped them, you know, understand that I was taking this seriously. But when I started looking for an agent after, you know, when I left university, you know, I would go in and I'd sort of say, and I'd sit down and say, I don't do pimps, I don't do drug dealers, don't do butlers, and I'm really iffy on slaves, right? And they kind of look at me, well, you know, you've got to do this to get your foot in the door. And I'd get up and I'd leave. And that happened about 6 or 7 times until I found the agent that I still have to this day.
Wow, really?
You know, Molly Reisler, who's a friend and agent and so forth. And I said, you know, I don't do pimps, don't do drug dealers, don't do any butlers, and I'm really iffy on slaves. And she said, okay. And together we worked on changing people's minds. So at this point, my resume is 95% non-black specific. Right, you know, and I've had the pleasure of playing the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera, not that insipid musical, but the real play, Théâtre Outrement, and I've played characters by the name of Carl Lubinsky, and you know, and Mitch Malloy, and all these characters that were not written for a black actor. But, you know, I proved myself enough to, you know, for them to sort of look past that and say, hey, you know, I think he's good, and I think he can bring something to this role.
I think what's interesting about that is that your career choices have always been things where you you've been changing people's minds about things. You know, you've been doing something, doing it well, and changing people's minds as you go. So it's pretty interesting.
You know, I mean, you know, for me, it was, you know, it was a matter of you know, I'm a history buff, and as I learn more about my history and the history of, you know, the people that I come from, and how much exclusion, you know, has been over the centuries. I've kind of taken it on as a bit of a crusade to start beginning to change people's minds. As artistic director of Black Theatre Workshop, I've always pushed people to find out more about that missing part of history, the black loyalists, you know, who helped found Canada.
Well, you're certainly in the right place now to be getting people to... I really appreciate that you would take the time to be here today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for chatting and for sharing your stories and for giving us a glimpse of your life outside of politics. I appreciate it.
Thank you.